Welcome to the CRA Corner Podcast. I am Annalisa Parts.
And I'm Maria Milas, and we're two former CRAs talking all things clinical operations. Welcome everyone to another episode of the CRA Corner Podcast. It's so nice to have you with us again, one more week, another week of these conversations, of these practical, real-life conversations about the CRA role, about the challenges, about the world experience, real-world experience of a CRA monitoring clinical trials. And Annalisa and I today picked a very interesting topic, and it's also a topic related to the previous episode where we discussed the delegation of authority log. But today we're going to speak about the training log. It has a whole complexity around not only setting it up, when do we collect the training records and which training records, but first of all, I would love to know, Annalisa, for those perhaps who are more entry-level CRAs or who don't have exposure yet to these logs, these essential documents, can you tell me in 20 seconds, what is a training log? What do we collect on this format? When do we interact with it as a CRA? Give me everything that comes to mind.
I think basically for the training log or even for the training certificates, I think the best statement that goes along with these documents is, if it's not recorded, it didn't happen. So I think that's really like the best way to think of it. And I think we, as CRAs, we all have had a time when somebody from the site actually has been forgotten to add to the training log for a new protocol or for IP. And then when you get to the site, everybody is already having their names and there is already a new training. And then you're like, oh, damn, like, where should I put that? Because it's like the timeline will not go together or it's really difficult. So, but yeah, for any kind of training that is performed for the site staff needs to be on the training log. Or if we think about the certificates, then we need to show that these people are actually trained and they know what they're doing. So that's basically why we need this kind of documents.
Yeah, you've passed the test. You're in alignment with the ICH-GCP. It's a funny thing because I was checking what the ICH-GCP, the E6R3 says about the training records and the training log. And I was thinking, we don't treat it as an important document sometimes. Yes, we know where we need to collect the trainings and we need to update them. And whenever there's a protocol deviation at the site, we know that we need to retrain the site. And then we just in 20 seconds remind them of what was done wrong. And then we'll just say retrained on whatever issue we had. But actually there's a full section in the ICH-GCP that says it's a requirement from the sponsor. It's a requirement from the investigator to make sure that we are properly trained. Because if we're not qualified for conducting that clinical trial, and therefore that is not ensuring the safety of our patients. And that's how important it is.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we always are thinking about the delegation log and protocol IB and delegation log. But indeed, even I have been past like 4 years or 3 years really interested in inspections and actually what are the common findings.
Yeah.
And even though we spoke in the previous episode that I think I have never had an audit or inspection where the delegation log has been correct, but indeed if we look into the EMA inspection reports or MHRA, then we can see that incomplete training logs are really a big part of that. So I do not really know if I have seen delegation log in there, but training log is definitely there. Yeah. Because if you are not trained on, or actually you might be trained on protocol, but if you haven't documented that, then it's going to be a finding. So
totally.
It's really...
And training records can have multiple formats, right? It can be a certificate that you are required to have because of your role. And I can think of, you always mention, Annalisa, the IATA certificates for if you're a study nurse or doing sort of those assessments, right? Or is it for investigators too?
No, it's actually the person who needs to ship laboratory samples. So you need to know how to pack these samples. So this is only for people who have these kind of tasks. even if you might be like site nurse, but you might, if you do not do that, then you don't have to have it.
See, there you go. Another piece of knowledge that goes through this every month. So there are these certificates that are required that are external, I would say, that site staff needs to have, right, by themselves. You know, GCP certificates, the site staff will provide it to you. Sometimes the sponsor or the CRO can provide it to the site, but usually, I would say in my experience, usually the site staff would already have their own GCP certificates. So they would just provide them at the SIV. So we have those certificates as part of the training log. Then we have another type of trainings that are the trainings we deliver. Maybe we as the CRO or the sponsor or the CRA, you know, a training on the protocol version 2, or a training on the IB, or a training on the pharmacy manual. And the SIV training that we deliver is also part of that training log. And then there's a third section of type of certificates or certifications, which is the vendor provider trainings. And I think here I would love to get your input because, of course, there are several systems that we use in a clinical trial to collect data EDC, to store our documentation ETMF, to manage and not only collect the documentation, you know, EISF, ETMF, and to use this system, you also need to be trained.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody who uses the systems needs to be trained. CRA is included as well. So how's your experience? How's the training process? And how do we collect these training records when it comes to the systems that we use?
So I would say that it's fully like vendor by vendor. So I think as you yourself have experienced as well, trainings that are online. So basically like meaning that before you can enter the system, you need to do the same, which I think you might be referring as well to, for example, when you have metadata, which is the biggest, I think everybody has. If you have worked for a big CRO, then you have used that. And as you know that for different pharmas, there is like different accesses for this kind of system, for this metadata rave. And even though the training is the same, you still, before you can access the platform, you need to do it. So like, I think for me, I think I had like 80% of that were on the same like platform in metadata rave, but I still needed to perform the training for each of the sponsors. But it's definitely like, I would say vendor by vendor, like the method, what they have come up with. I don't know even like what is the best way of doing, or like what is the best method for providing this training, because we are a smaller company. We have the possibility to still like not face to face, but basically ourselves, just to have the open to QA possibility. So just for them to ask, and what we do see is that we do it around like 30 minutes. It's really like short in a sense. Of course, I understand that like metadata scale of companies cannot do that, but it's still.
I think nobody has yet figured it out what's the best way to train for different studies, different sponsors, different site staff, and have a unified training platform or unified training records. But I do remember as a CRA how often site staff would complain about having to get another training for a system that they're already using in 3 other studies for a different sponsor. And you can't just take those trainings that you've done maybe 2 months ago, which are still extremely relevant because nothing has changed in 2 months, and just take them as, yes, the site staff is trained on this system because they're already using it in a different study. Yeah. So here's where it comes study by study.
Yeah, and I don't know, I hope that it has changed, but I remember at my time that what we tried to do is basically export the certificates and show to the like other study, like not management, but basically project managers, clinical leads, that they actually have been trained, and it was not still accepted. They still needed to do it. We were just like why the hell they need to do it?
Absolutely.
So it was that difficult.
That's the challenge. That's the challenge with the training when it comes to the systems that we use in a clinical trial. And obviously, no clinical trial will have 0 systems. So you will have to go through the training processes of every single one of those systems to then get certified and be able to use the systems, because you need to make sure that you're qualified to do those tasks. So that's one part. Now, the second part I think that I would love to bring into conversation is, what type of trainings do we CRAs give to the sites? So what type of trainings do we have to get used to, let's say, giving to and training our sites, or training our investigators or our study nurses or our pharmacists, and then collect them into the training log? What were the most common ones you used to do?
Yeah, so definitely the primary that came from SIV, just again, there was always a discussion how it should be recorded down, because I used to do SIV training, but there was like people who said that it's not like sufficient enough, that you need to like make separate like line, for example, for protocol, for I don't know, whatever, like IP for. I did do that, I think, from the first study that I was on. But I understood that if you have 10 plus people joining, then I'm gonna be taking forever. But what I used to do is, or like after that, I actually just had one line, so SIV training, and in the report I actually explained like what kind of trainings I performed. So that was like the connection point for me. But after SIV, the primary trainings were of course protocol, because I think there is no study that goes through without protocol amendment.
Yeah.
Then IB for investigators, and any kind of retraining on anything, which always was a problem as well, because it depended quite strongly as well. First of all, on the protocol deviation severity, or how bad it was, but also on the report reviewer.
Oh yeah.
If you recorded a BD, then even if it's as minor as possible, then there were some report reviewers who basically forced you to write in the report that you retrained these people. Yeah. And I don't remember, found a solution, or let me think, it was not, I said retrained, but I said some other magical word that that was quite similar to retraining, but it didn't like actually say that I need to have like a training log line there. So because it was so easy to forget that you had written that you retrained them, but if it's not in the training log, it's definitely a challenge.
It's so interesting how we play with words sometimes in how we collect the data in clinical trials.
Yeah, but it's actually, having gone through myself as a CRA audits, I didn't have inspection myself at the time yet, but audits, I learned to be extremely careful what I write into the reports, because everything that's written anywhere, it might be turned against you, and you have like no, basically you need to cover your own back, because nobody else will cover your like mistakes or help you with resolution of this. So I was really careful on what I'm writing in there.
It's a great tip, Annalisa, and I know that many members of CRAConnect always ask me, is it necessary to report this? Is it necessary to put this in the training log? Is it necessary to put it in my report? And it might not be information that you might consider necessary, but think of it like this. If the site, or if the auditor, or if the inspector doesn't know that you performed, that you checked that, it doesn't mean that it's right. And probably what they will assume is that you disregarded it, or you didn't see it, or you just didn't check, or you just didn't do your job while it was a responsibility of you as a CRA. So if you think that something is important to you because you checked it, and if you think that it has to be recorded, then report it in your monitoring visit report. But the way we report it also needs to be carefully collected, because the way we say things and the way we report it can absolutely, I wouldn't say that inspectors want to turn it against you. It's not that the intention, but it is let me go to the CRA and see what did she mean by that. Did she check it? Did she not? Did she they come up with some solution that is not what it should have been. They took a shortcut, or what was it there? So to avoid those empty spaces that turn into assumptions that usually are not aligned with what we would want, reporting it carefully is so important.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you're forced to take away that, for example, like somebody is telling you to not report that PD, then always add that as well as a comment that you actually have done that, even though it might not like be a PD at the time, but it's still within your report. Because I think that's if it's not recorded, it didn't happen, and you have no way to protect yourself.
Funny thing you said that, Annalisa. I remember not long ago a CRA told me, Maria, I don't know what to do about this specific situation. And he had a study manager who considered that certain things, if they were reported through the monitoring visit report, sponsor would read it, and then there would be certain things that the study manager considered the sponsor shouldn't know, whether it was because the site staff did something or the site staff forgot to do something. I don't remember the specific scenario, but I do remember that the study lead was asking the CRA to remove it from the monitoring report. The CRA was very feeling unsafe to remove it, because if he would remove it, then it would mean that this issue never happened and it was not addressed. But at the same time, because the CRA needed his report to be approved by the study manager, in order to be approved by the study manager, it would need to be the way that the study manager would want. So what do you do in that case scenario?
Oh, I can like deep dive into that. Like,
go for it.
I actually myself, as I have been a clinical lead, I have actually seen, like, I was not like in our company we had like report reviewers specifically for monitoring report reviews, but that's actually but this is bullshit, because there should not be. I know that sponsors will get only a section of the information, but it should not be that way. So it should not be, and then I think that's the like most unfortunate thing, that actually sponsors give over the studies to CROs, but the information that they get back is extremely limited, and they don't have the oversight. They believe everything that the like CROs are giving to them, and I think it's really like a sad thing, because you no longer are like holding your study, or you're no longer the owner of your study, even though you're paying millions of bucks for that. But it's definitely this kind of, I understand that like basically you are stuck with the report reviewer, but I think what I would have done I think I would have done two things. One thing, definitely via email. Everything via email will be reported, and I would file that email in TMF. And the other thing, I think I would have gone to the line manager. I have done it myself several times, that I have gone above the people itself, because I don't believe in something or I don't see it. But of course, you need to be careful on that as well. You need to understand if the person like above you and the person above that person, if they are sticking together, then it's not going to happen. But if the person above that person is still like adhering to SOPs or actually adhering to the ethics that we should have, then it's fine. But you need to understand that before, because it can ruin your career as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Annalisa. You said it's all right. And above all that, I would say that my tip was, if you don't find a safe space in the team that you work in, where you can report what you consider relevant and crucial to report for the, let's not forget, safety of the patients that are in our clinical trials, then it means that if you address it to the CRA line manager, and also my first advice was to escalate it, but if you escalate it and that turns against you, or that turns into even a bigger problem, consider leaving and getting another job, because you will never be in a position where you safely and openly can report things that you consider are relevant without having repercussions, without having consequences that are on you internally. It might be that you don't get promoted as fast as you could be in another company. It might be that you get performance reviews that are, she's conflictive or does not does not follow the internal regulation SOPs, or could be more, whatever the reasons. You can always find some reasons, but if it turns against you, your intent of reporting as much as possible and keeping the data quality and keeping the patients as safe as possible, keeping the sponsor informed, which, let's not forget, it is required by regulation. And again, I'll go to ICH GCP. One of the most important sections is sponsor responsibilities. And if I understand if it's delegated to the CRO, but the way that they get the information is through the CRA, then of course CRA give me as much information as possible.
Yeah, and I think there is the thing where a lot of companies forget is that, okay, yeah, you can outsource your activities, but still you are responsible for your study. Yeah. So you need to be informed, you need to be knowledgeable what is happening. And indeed, if you have sites who are, faking patients or they are basically, patients are dying because of something that the site is doing, hopefully not, but still, if there is indeed something that hurts patients, believe me, the sponsors want to know, because if it's gonna come out, it's gonna be affecting them way more than any kind of CRO.
Yeah.
And their stock, their medication, what they are testing for, so they are definitely interested in that.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think it's really, everybody thinks that if you just give it over to CRO, then the pharma is basically hands up and we're going to be taking the study back when it's basically ending. So it's not that way.
Yeah. Getting back to the training law.
Yeah.
Because some topics that we get so passionate about, which makes me think we should absolutely make an episode on being a CRA in bigger corporates, bigger CROs, bigger sponsors versus the smaller ones. What's the differences and how can you navigate that? I really think that it's a great topic to discuss.
Yeah, and as we have been both on the bigger ones, then maybe if anybody is listening and is coming from a smaller one, then please reach out to us and we would definitely love to have you just to listen from the smaller ones
and
as well.
The third company I joined, which was a CRO, was actually a small CRO, but it got acquired by a big one, and then I saw that change too. So it's an interesting thing. But back to the training log. Back to the training log. I think the chunk of the time of the CRA will go into trying to keep these training records and training collected and up to date in the ETMF, in the ISF, and in the form itself, in the log of the training records. But we experience a lot of challenges in keeping those up to date. One of the biggest challenges I faced was not getting the signatures on those training records from the site staff, and having the study manager or the sponsor asking me to get it not offline. What I mean is when I'm not on a monitoring visit, through email or getting it, asking the study coordinator to then go after everyone at the site and try to get those records. That was one of the main challenges I had. So how was your experience with that, and what other challenges did you have with the training log?
Oh yes, that was, I think, indeed the main
one, right?
You didn't get the signatures on the spot because for some reason the person just needed to go somewhere or attend to patients or whatever. They didn't have the time, and indeed afterwards I do not understand what can people think that sites are willing to send things remotely, because they even if they would have the time, if you think about actually what is the process to actually get it remotely, meaning that somebody from the site actually needs to go to, let's say, site coordinator maybe is the one person who will be willing to do it, then she needs to go find that applicable binder. We used to have 6 of them, so she needs to find it somewhere in the 6 binders. First of all, of course, it might be even like stored in the PI's office, for example. Then she needs to find somewhere all of the signatures placed as well. Don't forget that. But also the scanner, like something to scan with.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, of course, I understand they might have these kind of things more because of the requirements. But it's like nowadays such a difficult thing to have. And then, of course, scan it, get it in their email, review it if it's scanned correctly, and then send it to you for review. And that every page is there, of course, because you cannot upload a half document, only one page that you just requested for. So it's the process itself is extremely tedious. So yeah, I don't know, it was the same problem with me, and I really hope that today's CRAs do not get to go through this so much, because I hope that they have digital training logs, but I don't know.
Some do, some don't. And I speak from experience how so many CRAs struggle with this, and I always recommend have your own tracker of the training records, and don't just rely on the log itself to know how many trainings are you missing from whom and how many signatures. Somehow you need to have ownership in your own files at home or in the office, also when you're not on site, just to know who's up to date and who's not.
Yeah, that's I think the only way how it works, but it's again quite crazy to think that CRAs need to basically duplicate something into their own trackers just to get the information.
A sense of ownership.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's crazy to think about. But again, as I said in the previous call, go digital. The way, even the collection of signatures is so much more easier between the departments. And you can, as a CRA, you can have a look who actually has placed the signatures and whom not. So it's way easier.
Yeah, and here's some CRAs who might be listening to this and who might say, oh, great, my sponsor is actually having that electronic ISF, electronic ETMF. Then you're good. You just need to learn how to keep up to date and how to control that system and how to stay up to date with the notifications, and then you're great. But some CRAs will not have a power of decision in this, because it's the sponsor or the CRO who says, no, we're going paper, or we're going a paper EISF or a paper, not ETMF, I would say. There's very few paper ETMF nowadays. But if you're forced to go, let's say, through paper, so that means you don't have that control or easy control digital, my recommendation still is to today, try to have from the beginning of the study a tracker or a tool that helps you keep track of your sites, your visits, the documentation, the regulatory documentation, the patient status, obviously without any identifying information, but know how your study is doing and where do you have more work to do. So create that and keep it up to date. Sort of have it always open, and that's the only tool that will help you have oversight over, in this case, training records.
Yeah, I did the same. I had my own just to keep track of them.
Training records.
It's really silly to think that we are in the 26th year and we are still doing that. We're still in 90s.
We absolutely are. And of course, if we're considering big sites and maybe locations that are slightly more digital than others, and also, within Europe, we have certain countries and certain sites that will not be as open to digitalization as others. So we definitely don't have a solution unified yet, but hopefully we're in process and we're building more and more tools that will help also CRAs, about which I'm also very excited to hear about at the upcoming conference for CRAs that we're hosting in May in Barcelona. But we hope that this discussion on the challenges of training records that we've had today, you can relate to it. And if you relate to it, let's open a conversation, because bringing the topics and giving them visibility is how we also push for solutions in this industry. And CRAs should have a voice into how the industry is bringing those solutions. So what we've done today in this episode is basically open the conversation, and we hope that you're going to join the conversation through the comments, through reposts, through sharing this with the industry, with other CRAs, through your own profiles. And in this way, we can build a bigger force in bringing these topics into the conversation of our industry. And Annalisa, thank you for having this conversation with me. And until next episode.